Pour moi, comme pour vous, le futur ne peut pas être un privilège.
For me,
c'est
as
un
for
droit.
you, the future is not a privilege, it's a right.
On a des ressources qui peuvent servir à l'électrification partout à travers le monde. C'est important qu'on puisse les utiliser, mais ça doit se faire d'une manière qui est responsable et qui respecte la souveraineté des Premières Nations. C'est pas vrai qu'on va être capable de maintenir la société forte dont on a besoin pour faire face aux menaces en coupant dans les services des Canadiens et en donnant plus de coupures de taxes aux entreprises. C'est le contraire qu'on doit faire.
Services to Canadians and giving advantages to big corporations.
Ici au Canada, on continue à avoir une économie qui est dominée par
Here in Canada, we continue to have an economy which is dominated by foreign interests. We are going to work hard to make sure that Canada is ahead of this extraordinary struggle to defend democracy, to push forward a climate agenda to leave a healthy planet behind us.
On a tout le talent ici au Canada sans le chaos. Ici, on doit s'en servir maintenant pour aller à l'extérieur et véritablement offrir des produits faits au Canada, manufacturés au Canada avec nos ressources premières.
Canadian products manufactured with our natural resources.
Bienvenue à notre émission.
Mr. Pedneault, good evening. Welcome to our show. The fight against climate change, and we're suffering of those changes. We see the natural catastrophes. We have a feeling that this has been blanked out during this campaign, whereas we keep suffering from it. Why do Canadians appear indifferent? I don't believe Canadians are indifferent for the future of their children, for the future of the planet. I think, on the contrary, that the reaction of Canada to the threat of Donald Trump shows how much we care for our territory. But in the present economic context, it's difficult, when you have a hard time making ends meet, to preoccupy yourself with with what's happening to the planet. But it's difficult here, for one thing, to know who's guilty. Governments are trying to put this down on individuals, while companies keep making record profit, and taxpayers see problems accumulating. So I think that we need to change our priority. We need to link climate change and the economic difficulties we have. So why don't people adhere to your idea, your projects, your ideas? I think that people will discover during this election that we're much greener than they think. We have a platform which is daring, that recognizes the strong points of Canadians, not only in terms of entrepreneurship, but also of using resources for the profit of Canadians. We've been selling them at a low price to economic foreign powers, be it the U.S. or in the past the UK. We need to use them and put them in the service of Canadians for Canada that will be daring. The other two parties want to develop our resources with pipelines and become sovereign or independent to the United States. Is this worrying for you? Well, it's worrying, but on the contrary, here in Quebec we have a great strength in renewable energy. It would allow us to have an east-west corridor of electricity. We have extraordinary knowledge about long-distance, high-voltage lines. It's certainly not pipelines that take decades to build and necessitates tens of millions of billions of dollars. We know what's happening with the TMX pipeline at a time when the Canadian needs affordable housing. The Canadian government is spending tens of millions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars for things that are controlled by foreign assets. What's your priority? What's the great thing that needs to be done on the environmental front? We want Canadians to be ready to react to all kinds of emergencies. I spent 15 years in conflict zones documenting abuse that people in emergency situations have to face. I want Canadians, in case of forest fires, flooding or cyber attack, and we hope that this doesn't happen, but clear and present threat coming from outside, to be able to react, to be responsible vis-à-vis Canada, especially in a moment like this one. Thank you, Mr. Pedneault, you were in the Green Party, you left, and you came back because of Donald Trump, if I understand. If you had Donald Trump instead of Anne-Marie Dussault in front of you, what would you say? I have no interest in meeting Donald Trump, and I think that Canadians need to turn the page on this sad episode and realize how much we were dependent on a single country. I've worked in Europe and Africa and everywhere. There are a dozen of possible partners for Canada out there. And it's time for a foreign minister to spend more time with possible partners to open new markets. The United States are turning their back on democracy, and I think that Europeans are going to have great doubts about American products that they presently have about Chinese and Russian products. We don't want to buy Chinese or Russian products because of the possibility of espionage. I think that Canada can establish itself as a manufacturer of high-tech products that are reliable. We have everything that we need to do that. These should be our priorities. You said that we should take possession of our natural resources. You criticize large-scale corporations. So what happens? You want to take it away from Trump? You want the government to take control of it? We're open to the question, to the issue of nationalization. I think that Quebecers are very happy with the nationalization of hydropower. They're better off for it. When we look at forest, water, we mooted the creation of strategic reserve, like we do with maple syrup. Water and maple syrup, same struggle? Yes, but if we eventually have difficulty in selling our aluminum or lumber in Canada, and who until recently were our main commercial partner, maybe we should create crown corporations that buy these commodities in order to be able to sell them back later. Are you saying that you want to nationalize aluminum and nationalize lumber? No, we want the state to buy the aluminum from Alcan, to buy the lumber made by different lumber companies in Canada, to build up national stocks, strategic reserves, which will allow us afterwards to have significant investments in the creation of new capital. We need to build housing in Quebec. We've done it in the past. Mr. Carney is almost close to the solution that we want to implement. That is that the federal state, in partnership with the provinces, must create modular factories to build housing. And I don't think that the private sector wants to take that risk, but we see an extraordinary opportunity to use the products to answer a clear need, to keep jobs here, but also to sell these prefabricated houses elsewhere in the world, like eventually electrical vehicles and telephones, etc. We have all the knowledge that we need to do these things. In a period of recession, we know that the state must invest in the economy to ensure that workers keep their jobs. For us, this is the logic in which we want to engage ourselves. I want to hear you about the carbon tax because it was aided by Canadians, it was dropped by the two main parties, and it's a way of taxing pollution. What are you proposing to Canadians in its stead? We've been, shoveling the burden of transition to individuals. We need to stop subsidizing the oil industry, which is a big problem in many regards. It's creating greater and greater inequalities in Alberta, the boom and bust cycle. So we need to have clear and stable jobs for oil workers. We've made an announcement recently. We want these jobs, and to be there to answer the emergency need of Canadians. We need to build an infrastructure to answer climate change. These are jobs that could be well paid and useful for the whole of Canadians. But we need to stop subsidizing it. We need to put a cap on oil production. We need to, the cap on emissions is necessary, but an emission in China or Vietnam with Canadian oil is going to have an impact on Canadians. It's going to cause more forest fires, more people who suffocate in the streets of Montreal or in towns like Jasper that go up in flames, so you don't replace that carbon tax. We want to shift the burden to polluters, and we want to make sure that governments help Canadians to make the right choices. And presently, we were all born in an economy that we didn't choose. I didn't choose in a city or a suburb where most of our travel needs to be done by car. My family in the Lac-Saint-Jean region didn't choose to use cars. We need to do a transition. It's not by taxing them that we're going to do it. You're talking about lowering taxes, and this would deprive the Treasury of $50 billion. We don't want to shortchange governments. We want to increase the money that comes into the Treasury. In the 40s and 50s, the Canadian companies were taxed at 40-50%. This has gone down during the Chrétien year. During the Harper year, we went down to 15%. Under Trudeau, it's remained at 15%. We want to bring it back up. Some people will think it's not very serious. Thank you very much, Mr. Pedneault, for participating in my show. Thank you.